for 28, 29 years I've been making pots full time and selling my work. The last business I was managing made screws and bolts, and I worked there for about 3 or 4 years, I think, and as general manager, and turned it around and made a lot of money for the owners, and then got fired a couple of days before Christmas. I probably stepped out of line, but I probably wanted it really. So then after that I walked out in the back, and I've been out there ever since. Before ceramics was first on the radar, I think it was learning and becoming passionate about working with my hands, and then that work went into my apprenticeship as a fitter and turner. And in the last semester of my business degree, I didn't have a lot to do, so I did take a class, but a formal class with the university, and beginner's class, and it was like a duck to water. I just loved it. When I moved to Boston, I took classes at other places, and then eventually met Makoto Yabe, who was not long in the United States from Japan. I was probably one of his first students, and that was like an epiphany. So having learnt the Western way to make pots, then I learnt the Japanese way, and it was just opened up a whole new approach to it. And so sort of 3 months maybe on technique, and then 3 years on philosophy and the aesthetics of Japanese ceramics. In retrospect, the two biggest influences on my career have been Makoto Yabe and Peter Rushford. The most important thing for these people, I think, was community sharing and generosity for both Peter and Makoto, so that ceramics was in a sense peripheral. You know, it wasn't necessarily the main part. Certainly from the time that I finished working in the corporate world, it allowed me to be working out the back here, allowed me to be taking my daughters to school and picking them up and having a life with them. And then now, as you know, 40 years down the track of making pots, I feel I have that same obligation that probably they felt about passing on my experience and knowledge. The generosity is important, to encourage people to have that generosity of spirit so that we share everything. Makoto was the most amazing thrower, you know, and his approach to work was speed and simplicity, and the freedom that came into his work was just amazing, and that's something that probably really appealed to me. Spiral wedging, throwing off the hump. I think one of the things that I learnt from Makoto Yabe was to throw with little or no water, and I think it's particularly important when we're working with porcelain. Important for all clays, but the more water we introduce into our throwing, the less time and ability we have to control the shape. So I've got 3 main methods, or pretty much equal. Throwing, press moulding with slabs, and using a jigger jolly. The way I do it, I have the mould as the outside shape of the pot, and this mould rotates like on a potter's wheel, and then a rib, you know, like a metal form that pushes the clay against the mould to form the inside shape. Making my own tools was, you know, incredible freedom. Learning how to make the tools and understanding then how to use them and everything. Like 98% of the work I do is for restaurants now, I think. And it's a range of restaurants, not so many Japanese restaurants, Italian, everything, you name it. Doing a lot of cups and saucers for cafes, so there's a whole price range. The real starter was the chefs were looking for a way to differentiate themselves from everybody else and how they presented their food. Initially, the chef would come and tell me what they wanted. You know, we wanted this shape, this size, this colour.
I need to get another 60 of these.
Now it's much more of a real collaboration where they have a dish in mind that they want to present. To make tableware, you need to really be firing either electric or a gas kiln. Generally it's all porcelain. It's always fired to 1300 degrees, cone 11, so that it produces the hardest, strongest possible product. It's important little things like the no sharp corners, or very few sharp corners, because they're the things that are going to chip first. You know, my tableware finance is the way I earn my living, and finance is my artwork. But also the tableware is my practice and rehearsal time for when I come to do my one-off pieces. I think I've always been a potter, although there's pressures to be, in some circles, to be a ceramic artist, but yeah, I'm just a potter.